Hello, Destiny Kids. I am Meredith Wood, and you are the Destiny Kids. What is a Destiny Kid? Destiny Kids, we're kids of value. We have hope for the future. We are a people of influence. We are children of destiny. Absolutely true. Together, we have been going on a treasure hunt for the greatest treasure in the world. And we started on week 1 with the mountains of forgetfulness. And we talked about, why do people have such a hard time finding God? And the answer is because sometimes they forget to look for God. Well, we made it through the mountains of forgetfulness only to find ourselves in the quicksand of unthankfulness, where we talked about how you can find God through the relationships of your family, and how sometimes we have to remember to be grateful for our family and not just expect that they're going to do wonderful things for us and not just expect they're going to love us, but that we are thankful for the love and help and care that we get in our family. Now this week, Bible Child has found itself in the swamp of unfriendliness. Unfriendliness. Have you ever been unfriendly? I mean, let's face it. Sometimes we just want to be alone. And other people come and they want to be with us and spend time with us and share things with us, and we just don't want to do it, which is normal. Absolutely normal. But how do we tell people that we don't want to do those things in a friendly way? Any ideas? How can I tell somebody kindly and with love that I don't want to go play right now? Should I say, go away, I want to be alone? I should not. What I could say is, right now, I really just feel like being alone. Could we play together later? And people who are unfriendly find themselves friendless at times, which means they don't have friends. And friends are important. Now, I'm not saying that you need hundreds of friends or even 12 friends, but a friend is a really important gift from God. And when you're young, really young, you don't actually even get to pick your friends. Your friends are the people who have parents that are friends with your parents, and they come over and they, all of a sudden all these kids are together, and you're like, okay, well, that's where you learn how to share and play, and that's important. But as you get older and your circle of friends starts to grow, you get to pick your friends a little bit more. Now, that doesn't mean people who are outside that circle that you are unfriendly to them. Oh no, we are not like that. We are gracious and kind always. But inside that circle of people you've chosen to be your friends, you have to realize that it's important to treat your friends properly, because they don't have to be your friends. They're not like family. Your family and you're pretty much stuck together. They are your family for your whole life. Your friends come and go. And you want friends that are going to stay. And you want friends who, when they go, let's say they move away, or you just change into different people and you don't like the same things anymore. When those friends go, you want to make sure that they go in a kind way. It's not because you've had a big fight and you're not going to be friends anymore. It's just that, you know what? Maybe we don't make the best of friends right now. Hi kids, I did have one other thought on friendships that I wanted to share with you. Some people might find that they don't have a lot of friends right now for different reasons. Sometimes it's because you've moved from a faraway place and you just haven't had a chance to make friends yet. And I want you to know that in those situations that you will find your people, you will find your friends, that especially as you get older, high school, when there's so many people that you've never met before, when you start going to high school, when you go out and you find a job, there will be people that you would never encounter otherwise. And I want to encourage you that you will find your people. You will find your friends. And it is okay to go through a season where you have no friends, because sometimes we can't control that. Like if you've moved recently, you can't control that. and you have to start fresh and make new friends. But in those times when you don't have a new friend, or you don't have a playmate, or those times when you look around and you say, because as you're watching this video, I don't want you to be like, oh man, how am I going to get through the swamp of unfriendliness? I don't have any friends right now. Don't worry about it. You do actually have friends without even realizing it. Remember that you are part of a community, the church community, and you will have friends at your church. And you have God. And it may seem really simple to say that God is your greatest friend, but really, God is your greatest friend. And when you are lonely or sad, you can talk to God and He will comfort you just like a friend does, because God loves you at all times, just like a friend does. And I wanted to encourage you not to worry, because this world is full of so many different types of people, and we can't be friends to all of them. Not everyone is going to be the kind of person you'd want to have as a friend anyway. So, don't worry, the friendships will come. Stick close to God and make good choices. Our lost city found is called Mesa Verde. Mesa Verde is located on the same continent as Canada. It is located in North America, in the country of the United States. And about 1,500 years ago, a group of people called the basket makers started to develop a culture, and they started to live together in a community. And they found this area on it's right in a cliff face, right? And that is where they decided to build their community. Now, as years went on, rather than just putting their little tents there, they started to build houses and dig little tunnels as well. Now, Mesa Verde is, I think, super cool because they think it is considered to be the oldest cliff-dwelling settlement in all of North America. And the really neat thing about it is that archaeologists have found, I think it's around 4,000 sites that they've set up in the mesa. And they have found evidence of how the people lived their lives, that they used to hunt deer and buffalo, and then as time went on, they started to hunt smaller things like rabbits, and they started to farm. And because of the studies that the archaeologists have made, they've learned a lot about that culture. And one thing they learned is that for a long time, people were very stable and everything was great. And they were very smart to build their settlement in the cliff face because it sheltered their homes from the cold weather, and it hid them from the roaming bandits that would have kind of rushed into other settlements and other houses to take things from people. Here in the cliff face, the bandits couldn't find them. So they were quite safe. But they also found out that at one point there was a 23-year drought, 23 years where they didn't get enough rain and their crops started to die. So the people started to move away. Now, how was it discovered? Well, once again, we have a story of this. In this case, it's two cowboys riding their horses, trying to find some lost cows. They're like, where did our cows go? And they're riding through the mesa. They're like, where could that cow be? Do you see a cow? No, I don't see a cow. You see a cow? No, I don't see a cow. Oh, I don't see a cow, but I think I just found a city. And that's how they found the city of Mesa Verde. Two cowboys looking for their cows. Which is interesting because if you think about it, this happens to me a lot. If you're searching for one thing, sometimes you find more than you expected to find. Searching for one thing doesn't mean you won't necessarily find 2, 3, 4, or more. I have a friend. Oh, I made a little... I'll show you my friend. This is my friend. This isn't actually my friend, but I made her out of modeling clay. And when I was a child, I had a friend whose name was Kim. I called her Kimmy when we were little. And Kimmy lived close to me, and we went to the same school. And we used to go on bike rides together and have sleepovers and play video games. Kimmy was the one who taught me how to play Super Mario. When we got into high school, we were still very good friends for the first couple of years. Then she left school before I did. And when I left school, I went to another country for a while as a traveling missionary. So she and we didn't stay in contact. And then when I came back to Canada, but I can tell you that we still feel like we are very good friends. We shared so much of our lives together. And Kimmy and we did fight sometimes. Not a lot though, but we did. And we hurt each other's feelings sometimes, but we always found a way to get back to being friends. So Kimmy and I have been friends for decades and decades and decades and decades. Okay, maybe not 70 decades, but still many decades we have been friends, and I believe we will always be friends. And right now, she's working at getting her driver's license, and one of the first things she's going to do is she's going to come and see me. The Japanese spider crab. Any guesses where this creature might be found? That's right, near the coast of Japan. So this creature really is as big as it looks. Actually, it's bigger than it looks. The Japanese spider crab lives for up to 100 years, and it grows so big that the span from the tip of one leg to the leg on the opposite side is 12 feet. That is 4 meters. All right, let's put the Japanese spider crab's size into perspective. There you go. Those are the legs. I'm sitting on the body of the Japanese spider crab. Right now, I'm sitting where the Japanese spider crab's body would be. Those are the legs. Now, do you remember our eagle we learned about last week? That had the wingspan of 2 to 3 meters. So the wingspan I showed you was 3 meters. The Japanese spider crab's legs are 4 meters apart. 4 meters. That's how big this crab is. And this crab crawls along the bottom of the ocean, and it's actually very, very deep in the ocean most of the time. And so although there's lots of meat on that crab, people actually don't get to eat it very often, and it's considered a delicacy. So if you ever get to eat Japanese spider crab, just realize you are eating a very special crab. So one of the reasons that people have a hard time catching this crab is because it's so deep in the ocean. But another reason that people have a hard time is because it's a decorator crab, which means that it picks up little pieces of the ocean and it puts it on its shell, on its exoskeleton, so that it can blend into its surroundings. Even though these crabs are massive, they are very gentle. Like most of Earth's really big creatures, these are very gentle. And as a general rule, they don't hurt people. Now, if people pick them up or grab them, then they will respond. They have big pincers on the front and they can really hurt a person. But as a general rule, they don't bother with people. And they are quite content just walking along the ocean floor. The Japanese spider crab is an omnivore. An omnivore eats a little bit of meat and a little bit of plant. So the omnivore eats everything, actually. Once in a while it'll catch a little animal, but for the most part, it's plants that they eat. But if something dies and falls down to the bottom of the ocean, they will eat that corpse. Any corpse. Doesn't have to be a fish. If it's on the bottom of the ocean floor, the Japanese spider crab will eat it. The reason it's called a spider crab is because it looks so much like a spider. And it isn't a spider at all. But its appearance is one of a massive spider. Now, I don't know about you, but I am not that keen on encountering a 4-meter wide spider. So, or crab, to be honest. I'm awfully glad they live deep, deep in the ocean.
So you'll need 3 strings, and if they're different colors, it comes out so much nicer. So I tend to just tie a knot at one end to get my start.
Which you wouldn't do with hair.
No, because it's already attached to the head.
Yeah, it's not going to go anywhere while you're braiding. Here, I'll do it with my hair while you do it with the string.
Sounds
No,
good.
my hair's all one. Well, my hair's 2 colors, but I can't braid it that way. Here.
It's a little harder
I'll
that way.
do it with my hair so they can see. I'll divide my hair into 3 sections. There. Let go. There. 1, 2, 3.
Good. And then
Last
you
week,
take
I
your
mentioned
one
how
string
friends
and it
can
goes
become like
over
family.
one, under the other.
And
then
I
there,
did quickly
the one in the
mention
middle goes
David
under the
and
next.
Jonathan, and how David and
And
Jonathan were
just
so
keep
close that they were like family,
rotating
that
your
they were like brothers. So this week I went back and I studied a bit about their friendship again.
I understood
And-
it. Look how good I am at braiding all of a sudden.
They had such an intense friendship.
So you see with
So
3?
Jonathan was the son of the king. David was a shepherd boy who was anointed to become the next king. You probably have heard of the story of David and Goliath, which is where David really gets his first big moment in the Bible. He leaves his father's house to go and bring food to his brothers who are fighting against the Philistines. And while he's there, this huge giant comes out and makes fun of the Israelites, and they make fun of their God. And David says, "What?
Hey, how about
How dare he make fun of our God? We should go out there and kill him." And David says, "I'll go fight him." And he goes out and he kills the giant using a slingshot and a stone, right? You've heard that story. That's how David ended up at the royal court.
Yeah.
And he and the king's son, Jonathan, become friends. Now, Jonathan at the time is already a famous war hero. So David is a famous war hero because he killed Goliath. But Jonathan is also a famous war hero. And there are so many stories about how Jonathan defeated the enemies and how Jonathan said, if our God wants us to win this war, we'll do this thing or this will happen. And Jonathan loved God. And Jonathan was a great warrior. And he and the great warrior David become friends when they are young. And they become so close that when the king decides that he wants to kill David, Jonathan tries to stop it. And one day, unfortunately, when Jonathan is looking for David, some of David's soldiers find Jonathan and kill him. And they think David's going to be so happy because now, without the son of the king, nobody will prevent David from taking the throne. But David is not happy. His heart is broken. Because you see, the throne was going to be his. And he knew that. And Jonathan was no threat to him. Jonathan and David had a great love for each other. And I throw around this word love, right? And people think it's so funny to talk about loving your friends. But it's not funny. There are lots of different kinds of love. Have you ever said, I love pizza? Does that mean you want to marry pizza? No. It just means that it's something you really like. You can love your friends. It doesn't mean you want to marry your friends. So the love of Jonathan and David was a strong, strong love of friendship that went through all their times, the hard times, the good times, the dull times, the exciting times. Those two were friends who loved at all times.
Very
Friends are helpful. That's a good trait of a friend. It is a very good trait of a friend. What's another good trait of a friend?
caring.
Yes.
Good listener.
Totally.
Sometimes you just need a good friend to listen.
So when I'm looking at this friendship bracelet that you are making, I think it looks like the kind of braid you put in someone's hair.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So one way of making a friendship bracelet is just to braid the strands of thread together.
Yep.
Yeah. You know the neat thing about braiding is braiding actually has lots of meanings all around the world. Like in marriages, sometimes they braid cord together for marriages, and the meaning behind that is when you put your strength with someone else's strength, that then you are stronger, right? Like a cord of 3 strands doesn't break as easily as a single cord, right?
It's true.
So if Danielle and I were to each grab hold of one of these strings and pull, we could probably break that. But if we grabbed hold of this bracelet that she's making and we pulled, chances are it would take a lot more force. And that's one of the cool things about friendship bracelets, and I think that's why they're so popular, because we understand that with our friendships we are stronger.
What I think is really cool is, even if you have two strings together, you and one friend, it's stronger. But you, one friend, and God are even stronger.
You are a wise friend.
No.
All right, can I show everybody?
For sure.
Good. See that? So if you know how to do a braid, you can braid it.
Great braid.
Here, I'm going to give you my friendship braid here.
I'll take the scissors. And
So this week, we're trying to get Bible Child through the swamp of unfriendliness. And if you look at the link below, you will find that you can print out a picture of this disc. And this disc will fit on your map. I'm going to cut out this disc, and then we're going to paint it. And what you want to do is pick 3 colors to mix them together to get kind of a murky color. Now, I chose my colors at random. Unfortunately, the colors that I chose were pink, purple, and white. And I thought, I'll try again so I can get a little more murk in my color, and I ended up with cotton candy. So apparently I am not meant to have a very murky water, which makes me feel glad because I don't want to be in the murky waters of unfriendliness. So this is the color that I ended up with. So you're going to paint the top part of that disc. You can also color it with marker because markers will mix together as well. And in the picture there are 2 hands holding on like that. Put the name of your friend on one and yourself on the other. So I put the name of my friend Danielle. Danielle and I made the friendship bracelets this week. So I put Meredith and Danielle. We find God through our friendships. And then you're going to take that, put some glue on the back, and put it over there on your map. So we will have gotten Bible Child through the swamp of unfriendliness, the quicksands of unthankfulness, and the mountains of forgetfulness.
And then comes great.
Peter Carl Fabergé was a famous jeweler in the 1800s. And one day, the Tsar of Russia, Alexander III, commissioned Fabergé to make a beautiful gift for his wife, the Empress Maria. When she received the gift, it was an egg, a beautiful golden egg. And when she opened the golden egg, there was a golden yolk. When she opened the golden yolk, there was a golden hen that had rubies for eyes. And when she opened the golden hen, there was a little miniature imperial crown inside, as well as a ruby that she could wear around her neck. Well, that started the tradition that the Tsar would order these eggs repeatedly for his empress and other members of the royal family. Now, these eggs are astonishingly beautiful, and people have treasured them for hundreds of years. After he commissioned this gift for his empress, he was so impressed that every year the crown paid Fabergé to make another egg. And he continued this tradition up until he died. And then his son continued the tradition, having 1 egg made every year for the crown. The exact number of eggs that were made, nobody's really sure, but they think it's around 70. 70 is the number they're kind of holding on to. And of the 70 eggs that they believe were made, all of them have been treasured for hundreds of years, with the exception of 8. Of the 8 that went missing, 1 of them was found just 8 years ago. 8 years ago, a man found a beautiful golden egg at a flea market. And he was going to take it home and melt it down and use the gold to make something else. But thankfully, because we have the internet, he thought, just going to look up, I'm going to describe it on the internet, and I'm going to, maybe it's something. I don't know. Anyway, imagine his surprise when he typed on the internet the description of this egg that he had bought and found out it was a missing Fabergé egg. Because every Fabergé egg is worth millions of dollars. And the missing Fabergé eggs are worth even more. So imagine what a surprise that he was going to just melt. Imagine if he had melted down the egg and it was lost for all time. Wouldn't that be awful? So the Fabergé eggs are indeed one of the greatest treasures of history. Thankfully, there are so many that they can be shared. Unfortunately, the ones that are out there are owned by the wealthiest people in the world, and wealthy people try to buy off others' Fabergé eggs because, again, they're worth so much. Hi! Today's memory verse is a nice, easy one. If you have been working really hard on memorizing your memory verses, you're going to love it. This one is 1-9. A friend loves at all times. Proverbs 17:17. Even the reference is easy. 17:17. Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times. That does not mean that you don't argue with your friends. That does not mean you don't disagree with your friends sometimes. That does not mean that you and your friend are always going to get along. What it means is that inside, you love them. You always love them. And let's face it, we fight the most with the people we love because we're closest to them and their opinions matter the most to us. Our verses from the last 2 weeks. Last week we had, "So now you Gentiles are no longer strangers and foreigners. You are citizens along with all of God's holy people. You are members of God's family." Ephesians 2:19. And the week before, we had, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." Jeremiah 29:13. So here we are, week 3, and we have a friend loves at all times. Proverbs 17:17, such a good verse. Remember to love your friends, to cherish your friends, and to find God in the relationship you have with your friends. Remember, a good friendship is a friendship that helps you make good choices. "300 years ago, on a cold November night, the ship called the St. Peter, which was full of Russian sailors, ran aground. It crashed into the land, and at first the sailors were so happy because they thought they had found their way back to Russia. But they quickly discovered that they had not. And what had happened is that they were on an island that seemed to have never been visited by people before. None of the animals were afraid of people. In fact, the foxes would follow them around the island and sneak food out of their bags. Now, one man on this voyage named Stellar, he was sitting on the shore of the island, looking out to the ocean and thinking, how are we going to get home? Nobody's going to look for us here. He saw something in the water, something huge. And as he watched and he watched, he realized it was what's known as a sea cow. This sea cow became known as Stellar's sea cow because he is the first person to have discovered it and brought knowledge of it to the main population. Stellar thought that these were amazing creatures because, first of all, the sea cow is related or very similar to the manatee. Now, manatee grow to be about, Manatee grow to be about 3 meters long, a little more. The Stellar sea cow was 10 meters long, huge. And he thought, those look like they'd be pretty good eating. So, of course, they started to hunt them. They were on an island and they needed food. And foxes are very hard to catch. They were fiercely loyal. If the sailors harpooned a sea cow, the other sea cows would rush around and swim around and try to free it and comfort it. So they did hunt them a lot, but that's not why they became extinct. There were also a lot of sea otters in the water. Now, sea otters eat something called sea urchin. They think it's tasty, tasty, tasty. And sea urchin eat something called seaweed, mostly kelp. And that's exactly what the stellar sea cow ate as well. So the Russian sailor said, if we can catch these sea otters, then we can take their pelts, their fur, and when we get rescued from this island, we will be rich because we can sell the furs when we get back to Russia. So they hunted these sea otters. As they started killing the sea otters, there was nothing to eat the sea urchin. The sea urchin ate all the kelp, and the stellar sea cow couldn't find enough. Now, when we looked at the Haast eagle, we discovered that it took about 100 years for the Haast eagle to become extinct. It only took 27 years for the stellar sea cow to become extinct.
You see in here, there's no our thing in here, right? It's not there. It's not there at all. See? It's not in there. Now I'm going to close this. And it should be here. Woof. Whoa, magic! It suddenly appeared out of nowhere. I think I'm supposed to hold it like this way. And now we need to put this on there. I'm going to put that on there. I'm just going to put down this box. And there we go.
So, Bible Child has made it through the swamp of unfriendliness. Hooray! What are we looking at next week, Electa?
It looks like we're looking at the Great Lonely Desert.
The Great Lonely Desert.
Yeah.
Not a place probably where there are lots of friends.
Except you can just bring them. You can just say, yo, you want to come with me on this dangerous quest to find God? You can just say that, and then you won't be lonely.
Thank you. So for our treasure, not gold, we're going to learn about another person. This person is Nikola Tesla. Now, Nikola Tesla was born in a part of the world that is now called Croatia. And Nikola Tesla was a very strange child. He only slept like 3-4 hours a night. Could you imagine being the parents of that kid? He was very curious about things, and everyone could tell he was super intelligent. And Nikola Tesla became one of the greatest inventors of all time. He got a job working for someone that you've probably heard of, Thomas Edison. Now, Thomas Edison is thought of as one of the greatest inventors of all time, but in truth, Thomas Edison had really good business sense. And although he did invent some things, he was very good at gathering a team of people, teams of inventors, to help with his ideas. And it was called DC, or direct current. He had an idea of a different kind of energy called alternating current. And it took him a while, but eventually he was financially supported by a man named Westinghouse. Alternating current or direct current, which one is better? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Tesla's design was chosen. And now in North America and most places in the world, they use alternating current. Now, he invented a lot of other things that you have heard of and used, but would have no idea that he was the one who invented them. The remote control, neon lights, X-rays. We also have Tesla inventions that were never made, but people were kind of curious about. One was called the earthquake machine. The other one was the thought camera. He also believed in the death ray, which you may have seen in science fiction, although he called it the death beam. The artificial tidal wave. Now, unfortunately for Tesla, as I said, he didn't have very good business sense, so he didn't patent a lot of his inventions, which means that he wasn't getting paid by people who wanted to use them. The very sad thing is that he would have been one of the wealthiest men of his time. He actually ended up incredibly poor, and he invented so many things, but he was quirky. For example, he was fascinated by pigeons. He didn't need a lot of sleep. He could learn languages super fast. Languages came so easily to him, he just understood them. In fact, nowadays when people study Tesla, they say, we think that Tesla had autism, or he was somewhere on the autism spectrum. Where he was on that spectrum, nobody's really sure, but they believe he had autism. And in fact, a lot of super brilliant people in history, the professionals from our time say that they think they might have had something like autism that allowed them to super focus on something. For Tesla, it was inventing and creating. So how are we going to remember to cherish our friendships? And how are we going to remember that we can find God in our friendships? Our first week, let's look in our treasure box here. Our first week, we used a map. The map was there to remind us that if I look for God with all my heart, I will find him. And I have to remember to actually look. And that's what got us through the mountains of forgetfulness. Forgetting to look is not a good thing. So just like if I have a treasure map and I forget to look at it, I'm not going to find my treasure. Then, last week we talked about family, finding God in the relationships of our family. And for that one, I had the picture of my grandma Marjorie. And that was the quicksand of unthankfulness, right? We need to remember to be grateful for our family members because some of them aren't always with us. And we need to remember that we can find God in these relationships and we can show God to others in our family. So this week, we're talking about friendship, but I don't have anything in my box to help me remember to find God in my friendships. But I do have this friendship bracelet that my friend Danielle made for me. I'm going to take my friendship bracelet and I'm going to put it here in my treasure box to remind me that my friends are treasures and that I need to be a good friend. And I need to choose good friends too. Friends who bring out the best in me.